This is CBC Here and Now.
It's like dream come true for me because I never thought I will land in Canada and I will pursue my master's in such big universities.
We are happy to report a slight growth.
Enrollment is up at Memorial University as many students return to campus for the first time since the pandemic began.
But could that change next year as tuition is set to rise?
There's a frost advisory in place for much of the island. I'll tell you about that coming up.
The group in this province that advocates for those with developmental disabilities wants the government to investigate what happened to Alison Decker here in Stephenville.
This case specifically is a sad development.
We'll speak with the association and what they think of her living conditions.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Peter Cowan in for Carolyn. We begin tonight back on campus. Despite 18 months of pandemic upheaval, enrollment at Memorial has gone up to just under 20,000 students in all disciplines. That's up 1.1%. And as Terry Roberts reports, it's being driven once again by an increase in the number of international students.
So yeah, I'm happy. I'm feeling it's my home far away from home.
Swapnali Kadem arrived in St. John's from India on August 21st to begin her master's studies in computer science, drawn by Memorial's competitive tuition fees and its reputation for high-quality education.
So, and I don't want to take huge amount of loan, so that's my first priority, that I need to find some cheap university, and with that it should be globally ranked high. So I found Memorial is the best university for me.
Kadem is part of an uptick in international students, numbers up by 360 compared to last fall. 1,400 more than 5 years ago. Overall, the equivalent to the population of Porto Basque, nearly 4,000 international students.
So it's like dream come true for me because I never thought I will land in Canada and I will pursue my master's in such big universities. So I'm very happy.
I will stay here for all my life.
Ujwal Singla came to Memorial 2 years ago and has fallen in love with the province.
The main factor I think is the fees over here is really low. If I'll do the same thing in UFT or something, I have to 40,000 or 26,000 per year. But over here it was half, 13,000 only.
We are happy to report a slight growth and a growth in international student enrollment as well.
Memorial's new provost says the increase is reflective of a trend across the country. She believes the numbers would have been even higher if not for pandemic-related travel restrictions.
We are thrilled that we have that increasingly diverse student body on our campus, and we are attracting talent from all over the world.
It wouldn't be as good of a community to grow and develop in.
Lower fees may be a big factor in the increased enrollment, but this local student believes the friendly culture at Memorial is also drawing more learners from outside Canada.
We have a very diverse community here at MUN, and everyone's really accepting. I think that's probably a big reason why so many people have come here this year.
But tuition fees will spike significantly next year. New international students, for example, will pay 20 grand, nearly double the current rate.
I don't think the number will be same in coming semesters because they can opt for higher ranking universities in the same segment of the fees, yeah.
But the provost has a different opinion.
I don't think we're going to see that, actually. I think we are going to continue to grow.
Which means diverse scenes like this will continue to be a hallmark at Memorial. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
And that's not the only increase. The Association for New Canadians is now preparing for a rush of refugees coming from Afghanistan. Newfoundland and Labrador will become home to a number of families being resettled through a federal program. And today the province outlined how people can privately sponsor a refugee. Here Now's Meg Roberts has more.
5 families from Afghanistan will call this province home, with the potential for many more. Weeks ahead of their arrival, the Association for New Canadians is getting ready for the big day and the hard work that will follow when those families settle here.
We're really delighted to be part of this humanitarian effort, as we were during Operation Syria. It's an incredible resettlement effort, and to support people whose lives are in danger, and anything that we can do to contribute to that is so wonderful.
The ANC was not able to provide CBC with more information. It's a sensitive time for these families and sensitive circumstances. given the current climate in Afghanistan and the family members who may remain behind. However, the organization says in the coming weeks it will be reaching out to the public for donations and volunteers. The ANC says several veterans who spent time in Afghanistan have already come forward.
Hopefully, one day we'd see more refugees, more newcomers.
Although these refugees are coming to the province through a federal program, today the province announced a little more than $100,000 for another settlement program. This is the 6th year the ANC has been funded a private sponsorship program coordinator. The program allows private groups and community members to sponsor a refugee. The coordinator position helps these groups navigate the system.
We have seen private sponsors of refugees in our province already. We expect and hope and know that that will continue. This will be a tool that will make it a little bit easier and hopefully will facilitate even more refugees coming to our province.
500 refugees have settled in the province through the private sponsorship program. This year, there's 150 spaces available for private sponsorships, which has increased. And the province will take in up to 400 refugees this year. Meg Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Eaton. I'm sitting in for Ashley Brauweiler for the rest of the week. Big thanks to Ryan Snodden for jumping in yesterday. So what are we looking at tonight? We're looking at this massive frost advisory. So you look Burgeo, Ramia area, Canagra. Let's see, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. Humber Valley, Deer Lake, Grand Falls, Windsor, and vicinity, the Green Bay, White Bay area. So it took me a while to figure out how to do this. Oh, no, it's not even. Man, I set up the map so it would move and it wouldn't. So if you're going to be living in these areas, just be careful because there's going to be a frost advisory tonight. And as you saw in Terry Roberts and Meg Roberts' piece, it was a nice day here in the province. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the weather that's on the way, including some rain that you could see in Labrador over the next couple of days. Peter?
Thanks, Jeremy. Police say they've brought down an organized crime group thanks to a $2 million seizure of cocaine in St. John's. Operation Rattle first began 11 months ago. Earlier this month, RNC conducted 5 searches which turned up nearly 11 kilograms of cocaine, 2 vehicles, 4 guns, and more than $450,000 in cash. A 37-year-old man from St. John's and a 25-year-old woman from Ontario were arrested and released, but have not yet been charged. The investigation continues. Police are also advising drug users to carry a naloxone kit after a recent warning about fentanyl.
You look at the financial scope of this particular seizure, this is over $2 million worth of product. And as I mentioned, investigators do believe that further cutting agents would have been added to this product, which would have multiplied it by 2 to 4 times. This is in fact intelligence-led policing. You know, anytime we have a drug operation of this scale, we rely on information from the community. So any piece of information that could help us related to drug activity, we want that information. You can provide it to the RNC directly or through Crime Stoppers.
Well, yesterday we told you about Alison Decker, a 46-year-old woman with intellectual disabilities whose family says she was neglected and abused. Now, she was under the care of the Bay St. George Residential Support Board in Stephenville, and now the province's advocacy group that represents people with intellectual disabilities is speaking out about Decker's situation and demanding that the government investigate. Here now's Colleen Connors reports.
The Newfoundland and Labrador Association for Community Living has been around for 65 years. And Ray McIsaac says it is there to support people with intellectual disabilities and their families to live safe, secure, independent lives. McIsaac says the association has many success stories getting people away from institutional life, more common in the 60s and 70s, and moving them to community-based support. But after learning of Decker's situation, he feels this is backsliding.
This case specifically of this young lady being abused and neglected and mistreated in the residential support board is a sad development, I must say, for our association, because the association was instrumental in setting up the cooperative apartment delivery system.
46-year-old Decker was living here in a basement apartment, But her sister Minette Firth says she was being locked downstairs alone for hours at a time, with her food restricted and her fridge locked. The association feels their concerns could have criminal implications for the staff and management of the agency. That's why they are calling on government to investigate procedures and policies on a larger scale to ensure these support boards and the overseeing board of directors are operating properly across the province.
Are people's rights being respected? Are people being over-medicated, as an example, to facilitate the ease of care because of understaffing? Are people being restrained and locked away or punished or ridiculed, as in some of these allegations that have arisen out of this particular case?
McIsaac says there's been a breakdown in accountability. He says any neglect did not happen overnight.
If we allow people to disappear into service systems, then I think you're going to see a great deal more of this kind of abusive and neglectful behavior. Okay, so now
McIsaac and the Association for Community Living sent a letter to the Minister of Justice and Health calling on an immediate investigation. McIsaac says that the association sent that letter to government parties on August 2nd, demanding an investigation and review of what's going on. McIsaac hopes that investigation has started. Western Health has told us that it is also investigating Decker's case. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Stephenville.
Well, now to a follow-up story that Here Now brought you several weeks ago. An Innu coat has been repatriated to the Innu Nation in Labrador. Now, for decades, you might recall, the Labrador Heritage Society preserved the coat in a freezer in Northwest River.
Yeah, now it's been returned to the nation, and it's on display at the Labrador Interpretation Centre. Here Now spoke with the cultural guardian about the significance of the coat and its story.
It's in really great shape for how old it is. We're very lucky. This one is not as an elaborate design as some of the ones that I've seen. I'm actually working on repatriating other ones from the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau. And they're, depending on the strength and the power of the hunter, they got more elaborately painted. The lines got smaller. There was more intricate details. There would be porcupine fringing with the porcupine quills. There's a lot more to the other ones. So this one might have been made for a child, a woman, someone that wasn't going to go hunting, that didn't need the special powers behind the coat. The coat was made so that it would please the caribou master, so that we could have a successful hunt. And after a successful hunt, the coats were hung outside as a thank you, and a mokoshan would be held inside the tent that the coats were surrounding. And that was a breaking of the caribou leg bones to get the marrow out too. Yeah, it was a really special meal to thank the caribou master for such a wonderful, for providing, I guess, for keeping us alive, sustaining us. She was the most powerful of all the spirits in our spiritual world. We believed that everything had a spirit, that you must respect all spirits in order to continue to prosper, I guess, on the land and everything around you. So you had to show thanks to these animal masters, because we are known as the caribou people, and the caribou master was the most powerful of all the masters. Being able to bring back a culture to future generations, to the ones that weren't able to be on the land, that were taken out of it. I'm working on a cultural center for Shajit and Adwashishne, and to be able to immerse ourselves back into our culture, I think will help a lot with our societal problems and everything that goes along with it. You feel like you don't belong, and with a culture, you got an identity. And I feel like these coats we're going to learn a lot from, and a lot of children will be able to recreate them in the cultural center. We'll be able to bring this back. So it's extremely important.
Activists here on the southern shore say this road is a threat to the coastline, but property owners behind me say that's nonsense. It's too far away from the water. This is Ragged Beach, the site of a lot of controversy here in Witless Bay. There are more twists and turns within the last 24 hours. I'll have the latest coming up.
There's a live look now at the camera on the roof of the CBC here along the Parkway. Nice day today, but it's going to get chilly overnight. We'll talk about that coming up.
Welcome back to Here and Now. I'm at Ragged Beach for more. Some developments have happened in the last 24 hours. You might recall earlier this month, a judge ruled that the deputy mayor here was in a conflict of interest and could not vote on a proposal that would cost $6,000 because it would benefit her brother. All right, politics in Witless Bay. Chris Ryan joins me now. Chris is one of the defenders of Ragged Beach. So Chris, what's going on?
Well, what's going on is, as you said, the deputy mayor voted on an item that would benefit her brother, so the judge overturned it. She was in a conflict of interest. She should not have voted on it. So they voted again last night. They approved the motion last night to go ahead with the road. So we had a standoff this morning at 5 o'clock. We started a standoff, around 10 or 12 people showed up. And We filed an appeal with a regional appeal board, and a stop work order was issued to the town before 12 noon today.
Okay, so you got a stop work order so that the construction that might have happened didn't happen. One question I have for you is, we're in the middle of a municipal election campaign. Does that pose any additional issues as to why this is going on now?
I think it does, because I served on the town council in Bay Bulls from 93 to 98, and 30 months leading up to election, we done nothing, absolutely nothing. We entertained no applications, nothing. Whatever came in, we just put on the agenda for the new council that came in. We done nothing but housekeeping bills.
Right.
And for this council to be passing motions last night to develop a road when we're 30 days out now, or 14 days out from election, is unheard of.
So if I understand correctly, you have the judge saying, okay, a deputy mayor can't vote on something that's going to benefit her brother, but the council said, actually, we can get together and determine, no, you don't have a conflict of interest, we're going to vote anyway. Have I got that right? That's the process?
Well, the deputy mayor took a leave of absence, so she wasn't present last night.
So what's the problem?
So technically there's no problem, but standard procedure is just a part of doing business within councils. You do nothing 30 days leading up to an election. As I said, and when I was on council in Bay Bulls and speaking to other councillors around the province over the years, being involved in municipal politics, it's the same in all municipalities. You make no big decisions 30 days leading up to an election. If there's any hard or big decision to be made, leave it for the new council coming in when they are duly elected.
Right. Now, as you probably know, there are a lot of people sort of home and they're kind of scratching their head because they've been following the story for a while going, what is going on in Witless Bay? I mean, you look behind us, beautiful land. All they want is like a little road to get to the property that they built there before there was a road. So what's the problem? Why can't we just give them a little road?
Well, the problem in Witless Bay is the landowners at Ragged Beach, their land is landlocked. You cannot get Crown land to build, you can't obtain Crown land to build a private road to private property. That's the problem. The provincial government should have stepped in the last 10 years or so and expropriate the private land at Ragged Beach and give the owners fair market value, or say, listen, you have a piece of land at Ragged Beach, it's a half acre, go find a half acre on a publicly maintained road and we'll swap it out with you. This could have been done in 10 years. This issue could have been done away with. Wayne Thistle was commissioned by the Department of Municipal Affairs in 2015.
Who's that?
Wayne Thistle, commissioner.
Yeah.
He was brought in to look at this issue, and one of his recommendations was to turn this area into a reserve, a 99-acre reserve or hectare reserve. Yeah. It could have all been over with, but the provincial government, the previous Tory government and this Liberal government are just letting it fester and fester and fester.
Well, why doesn't the department, there's a department responsible for municipalities, right? Why doesn't that department step in and say, okay, look, we understand there's bitter feelings on both sides, but here's what's going to happen. Why is the government and the department sort of saying, okay, let Witless Bay, let them figure it out?
It's a good question. I have no idea why, but it's a good question. It's time for somebody to do something. Like, this is ongoing now 11 years. Somebody has to do something. When is it going to end? Are they going to continue to spend Witless Bay taxpayers' money?
All right. Well, listen, I've put in a request with the department. I'm hoping to get the minister to do an interview or to at least offer some kind of comment. Appreciate your time, and I guess the work's been stopped for now, and this story is not over.
And another thing I'd like to add, the town hall in Witless Bay has been virtually closed down since the end of May. You can't get in there to get a permit or pay a municipal bill or nothing. And the biggest issue is building a road to private land. When residents can't access the town, you can't even get an email returned or a phone answered. And this has been going on since the end of May, early June.
All right. Well, listen. Obviously, some problems in this town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, all right, complicated story. Now, the Department of Municipal and Provincial Affairs clarified 2 points in a statement sent to us. First, the law does not mandate a caretaker period that towns are required to continue functioning until a new council has been elected and sworn in, so they can do as they wish. And it says the proposed road construction is within the authority of the town council. Now, I also spoke with several people who favor the road and say it is far away from Ragged Beach and won't cause any damage, but they did not want to be identified or appear on camera. And we made calls and sent emails to the town of Witless Bay, but received no replies.
It was such a nice day out today, Jeremy.
It was,
I know
Peter.
A lot of people were like, this is great. It's the middle of September. We're still having sunshine and warm temperatures, at least in St. John's. But if you woke up in Labrador,
it wasn't as nice. If you remember, Ryan Snodden was talking about this last night, that parts of Labrador might see some snow. So if, Gary, if you could show some of those pictures. So this is what Nain looked like this morning.
Yep, that's snow.
And Sean Lyle took the couple of pictures to show the snow there in the mountains. And then this video was sent to us from Jeff Budden, and he was in a helicopter in and around Happy Valley Goose Bay. So there was a little bit of snow. So, you know, the forecaster, Ryan Snodden, was right yesterday. Now, there is the chance that they could see some more snow in Churchill Falls, but mainly what we're going to be talking about now is frost. So let's just take a quick look at the current temperatures, find out where you live. You can look at it because we're moving on pretty quick, because this doesn't make sense since you can look outside and you know what it's like now. So what are we looking at for today's highs? Now, on the Avalon, it was pretty hot. You're looking at 20 degrees, 19, 22 in Terra Nova. That was the hot spot in the province. And as you move over to Central there, it stayed hot as well. You move into the high teens there. Labrador was a little bit chillier today. As you saw, there was actually snow in Labrador. So that's what we were looking at for the highs today. Now, this is the frost advisory. Now, earlier in the show, I tried to get this graphic to move, and I screwed it up. So this frost advisory is Burgeo, Anemia, Canagra, Humber Valley, Deer Lake and vicinity, Grand Falls, Windsor and vicinity, and what's the other one? Oh, Green Bay, White Bay. But this is what it was supposed to do. Look, oh God, it didn't work again. Oh, there we go. So if you're living in this area, there is a frost advisory for tonight. Now, Environment Canada put this frost advisory out at about 5 o'clock this morning, and it'll stay in place until tomorrow morning. And from what I read on the internet from Environment Canada's website, this is say that there will be patches of frost in this area, and that could be damaging to crops. And if anybody knows these areas, there is a fair bit of farming done here. So it's just sort of a warning. For everybody else, you might want to get your scraper out, put it in your car. I know you're like, Jeremy, man, it's September. And I was like, well, now's a good time to do it because you could wake up to it. Now, outside of this big blue area, there are going to be other patches of frost. So if it comes back and you're like, Jeremy, I wasn't in the blue when I still had frost, it's still possible. So that could come. Now, in the words of little orphan Annie, the sun will come out tomorrow. So let's just take a quick look at that. So you can see, screwed up my joke, because there's the future tracker. So that's that rain system that was in and around Labrador and moved across the southern part of Labrador and dropped a little bit of rain, and that'll see it there move slowly down, and that could bring some rain there to the Bonavista Peninsula, you know, Clarenville, Terra Nova, St. John's tonight, but just a few, well, not even a few millimeters, just a little bit of rain. You can see it there. But this is what we're looking at tonight. So there is going to be rain all across the Avalon Peninsula, in Central, basically all of the island except for Marystown and into Port aux Basques, but it won't be that long, and it won't see much accumulation until you move up into Labrador. Now, Nain and Happy Valley Goose Bay, it's not on the list there, but you're about maybe 2 millimeters in Happy Valley Goose Bay and maybe 2 to 4 up in Nain. Cartwright, you'll see a little bit of rain there. Labrador, I don't even know why the rain icon is not there. They should be there. That's a typo on my part. That's on me. But you could see 5 to 10 millimeters of rain as well, and there is a chance to see some frost up there, but just patches of frost, so not worthy of an advisory according to Environment Canada. So as I said, little orphan Annie says the sun will come out tomorrow. Now those rain, it's going to be rain shifting to sun there, as you can see in the Bonavista Peninsula, Clarenville, and St. John's. It'll rain probably till about noon, mid-morning, and then the sun will come out. Marystown, you're looking at a sunny day as well. And then moving across Twillingate and Gander, you're going to be in the same boat. It'll rain till about noon, and then the sun will come out. Look at Harbour Brenton, 14 degrees. Humber Valley, the west coast, looking beautiful today. Port aux Basques, 14 degrees, and low wind. What a beautiful day you're looking at. And it's the same as we move up the northern peninsula. The temperature is a little bit lower, but it is looking good. So then we get into Labrador. You can already see the big green monster with the blue into it, which isn't good news because that's going to bring some rain there. And you can see tomorrow, you're going to get 5 to 10 tonight. You're probably also going to get 5 to 10 tomorrow. Churchill Falls, you're looking at 5 millimeters of rain tomorrow as well. Now that rain, there is a system that's going to come in, so there's a chance that some more rain will come. But for the time being, it's not looking good for right now. But everyone likes rain. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I got to get out of this real quick. So this is the future tracker. This is the rain system that we've been talking about, and that's why you're going to see it's moving off into Thursday night. And then, so it'll bring up probably a few showers to parts of the island. But you can see it there moving its way pretty quickly across Labrador and the west coast into the northern peninsula as well. So the look ahead for Thursday, It's not a lot of sun, so that rain system is going to bring some cloudy periods and some rain, but we're not looking at significant amount except for in Labrador, but we'll know more about that later. But I'm going to shift the attention now from the weather to sports, and we're going to talk about this young man. So this is Declan Walsh, and about 6 years ago, he was our Young Athlete of the Day, and if you watch the show regularly, you would have remembered that we did it. Now, why am I talking about him? Because Canada is home to some of the hottest tennis players in the world right now, with Felix Auger-Aliassime and Leylah Fernandez making the semis and finals at this past week's U.S. Open. But this province has a few hotshot prospects of its own, including Declan Walsh. Now, he's at the Under-16 Nationals in Ontario, and when that wraps up, in the following week, he'll head to Quebec for the Under-14 Nationals. That's not bad considering he's 13 years old. And as you can see here, he's our Young Athlete of the Day at the age of 7. I caught up with him last week before he hit the road.
I found a balloon around my house and I started hitting the balloon against the wall, and my parents decided to sign me up for red ball tennis back when I was 5 years old. And I loved it, and I've been playing ever since. Yeah, so I won the Under-14 Atlantics in Charlottetown a couple of weekends ago. Yeah, so I had a really good tournament. I played the Under-16s as well. I got 3rd place there. I've really been playing some of my best tennis I've ever played. I'm really figuring out my game by now, and I'm really coming along.
He's not a wily veteran at 13 years of age, but this year had some great results, did some traveling, played some tournaments prior to the Atlantics, and you know, our goal with him was to peak at Atlantics, and he certainly did that. I've got enough fingers and toes, that's for sure, to count. There's probably been maybe 8 to 10 players over the course of my 25 plus years around of players doing that. So it's not an everyday occurrence. It happens probably once, twice a year for players from Atlantic Canada, but it's pretty rare.
First Under-16 Nationals is going to be in Ontario, in Milton, so I'm hoping to have some fun there. And the next week after that is Under-14s in Laval, Quebec, and that is going to be on clay, so it'll be a bit of a different game style and everything. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I've been hoping to get here, and I've achieved my goal really, and I've been training really hard, so I'm hoping that hard work will pay off.
There's more dead salmon at an aquaculture facility and more concerns from the Coalition for Aquaculture Reform. We'll hear from them coming up.
Land and Sea is making a fresh start this fall with a brand new time slot. Beginning this Sunday, we'll be seen at 1:30 on the island, 1 o'clock in most of Labrador. And wait for it, there are new shows coming, beginning October 31st, our Halloween treat to you.
The aquaculture industry is dealing with another die-off. Almost 100,000 salmon have died at a facility called The Gorge on the south coast. This raises concerns for the Newfoundland and Labrador Aquaculture Reform Coalition, and Leo White is with the group and he's here now to explain his concerns. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Peter.
This specific die-off, what sort of concerns does it raise for you when you have almost 100,000 fish in this case that die?
Well, it's 100,000 out of a pen that had 900,000 in it, so it's 10%. And it's kind of interesting because 10% is the magic ratio at which they have to make a public report. And that's one of the reasons that we found out about this. You know, otherwise we wouldn't even know. The fact that it's reported to be 10%. I think they gave a number like 92,000, you know, very exact number. So it raises all kinds of questions. How do we know that it was just 90,000? It may be much more. There may be more to come. You know, it raises all kinds of questions. But the bigger concern, other than the fact that, you know, this was a mass die-off, the bigger concern is that this is a continuing problem. We've had, this is the 5th mass die-off since 2013. And then in addition to that, there's all kinds of other issues. We got problems with infectious salmon anemia. You might recall there was a problem at Grieg's new facility just a few weeks ago. And again, you know, salmon had to be killed off because of disease in that case. And we got to remember, this is a industry that Newfoundland has bought into. It's been there for about 40 years now. And you would think in that time that problems like this would have been dealt with. We go back to the mass die-off that occurred in 2019. There was all kinds of talk afterwards by the company about how they were going to make the nets deeper. There was going to be aeration equipment, and this, you know, would not be happening in the future. But here we are, another mass die-off.
Isn't the biggest real victim in here the company itself? They lose almost 100,000 fish that were getting close to ready to be harvested. That's a lot of money for them. Isn't there already an incentive for them to not have events like this happen?
Well, of course, and you know, no industry wants to be in that situation. You know, I would describe it as an out-of-control system. Like in their public report or public statement, they said a sudden, they used the word precipitous, you know, so suddenly they found that there was a lack of dissolved oxygen. You know, well, this is a company that's in the industry. They're the biggest aquaculture company in the world. You know, you'd think that they'd have this resolved.
Well, thanks so much for joining me and sharing your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we asked the company Mowi for an interview, but they said their statement speaks for itself. But what's the industry saying? Well, Mark Lane is with the Aquaculture Industry Association, and he joins me now. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity, Peter.
So, first of all, I want to ask you about this most recent die-off. We saw in 2019, we had that big die-off with 2.6 million fish, and there were lots of changes made in order to try and prevent this from happening. So, what are we supposed to make of the fact that a smaller but similar event has happened again?
Well, first I want to, first establish the context of why I'm here. As the industry lead, I like to speak to, as you mentioned, the regulatory state of play, industry in general, and of course the tens of millions of dollars of investments that we've made in the last number of years, not just in the last 2, but certainly in the last 6 or 8 years, to prevent things from happening as such. So we're here tonight, obviously, because we reported this to the general public. We noticed that we had surpassed the regulatory threshold, or the company did, and they very transparently placed a statement on my website, of course, and the regulator as well, inform the people. And that's what we do. We want to keep stakeholders informed, real time, and keep them abreast of any developments in the industry as such.
But if all this investment has been made, why are we still seeing an event where there's not enough oxygen and we're seeing, almost 100,000 salmon here die?
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate. Like, let's remember now that the loss is the farmers, right? So like any other farmer, farming animals, there are inherent risks to farming animals, especially when you're in the millions of animals. And we have to remember that Newfoundland and Labrador has one of the most challenging environments for farming, whether that's farming fish or farming vegetables, for example. Last Friday we had a Category 1 hurricane, and a few weeks from now, inevitably and unfortunately, we'll have snow probably. So, we don't live here because of the climate and the weather, but unfortunately, as farmers, like any other jurisdiction in the world, there are inherent risks with farming animals in the marine environment or terrestrial environment on land.
What's going to need to happen in order to make sure we don't see another event like this happen?
Well, we do everything we can. As I said, look, we invest tens of millions of dollars. We're on the ground. We're farmers. It's not unlike any other sector anywhere else in the world to have mortality. It's just that they don't report it. We report it to the public, as you well know. What we need to do, we need to continue to invest and continue to learn and continue to have dialogue amongst ourselves, amongst competitors, amongst the industry, and learn from one another, from other jurisdictions, whether it's Norway or Tasmania or Chile or here in Newfoundland. We're farmers, so it's a perpetual state of learning and a perpetual state of investing.
Well, Mark Lane, I appreciate you joining me and sharing your perspective today.
Oh, thanks so much for the opportunity, Peter. Anytime.
Well, to Admiral's Beach now, where water was finally restored today in the wake of Larry, but according to the mayor, there is a lot of work to do. The storm surge blasted through the town's brand new breakwater. High water rushed into 5 homes on the coastline, displacing residents in 4 of those homes. Shortly after that, the power went out, and that took the pumps for the town's water supply down as well. Mayor Teresa Bungay says workers were able to get the drinking water flowing again today, but that the town will have to secure funding for a new breakwater. And she says residents won't be safe from storm surges until they do.
Larry came in with a vengeance Friday night. The breakwater came down, and 5 homes flooded, but 4 families, were affected. I mean, it just came in waves. I mean, up to like 4 feet of water. I mean, it was just coming like a wall. One lady told me that she got out amongst the rubble and worked her way up over like a big hill, because they're down in the lower end of the community on the flat land by the ocean. So she had to get out and climb the hill through this water and rubble in the dark of the night, and that wind howling, and get up over the hill to another neighbor up further up the road. They were fortunate to get out of there. Yes, indeed they were. They're traumatized. They're just in shock still, I think. It's hard, and it's draining, and financially and everything else. The damage to our infrastructure, especially our breakwater. I mean, that's the big protection for our residents in that area. We've been trying for years to get funding to get that done properly, and we haven't been able to succeed in getting any.
latest polling numbers put the Liberals and Conservatives neck and neck, indicating the prospect of another minority government. Today, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau attacked the Conservatives' Aaron O'Toole, accusing him once again of saying different things on the same subject to different groups.
These are the things that we're seeing from Aaron O'Toole. He's not leading, he's misleading. We need to stand strongly on a plan to fight climate change and grow the economy and stop the Conservatives from bringing us backwards.
Trudeau also touted the Liberals' plan for action on climate change, and he repeated his charge that the Conservatives will roll back targets to levels set by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper and his government.
Meanwhile, the Conservative leader called on voters to send Liberal leader Justin Trudeau a message today.
No to being taken for granted. No to more corruption. No to more borrowing. No to more lies. No to more of the same. Justin Trudeau started this election, but you can finish it.
Aaron O'Toole also attacked Trudeau again for calling what he calls an unnecessary election during a pandemic. O'Toole returns to Ottawa tonight to hold virtual town halls with Atlantic Canada and Quebec.
Meanwhile, the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, wouldn't say today if he would prop up either the Liberals or the Conservatives if one of them forms a minority government.
This is an election where you've got a choice, and the choice is really important. Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole are fighting over who's worse. I can answer that question for them. They're both pretty bad.
Singh is targeting seats in vote-rich Toronto, including those previously held by the NDP.
The recent discoveries of unmarked graves at former residential school sites have renewed focus on a painful chapter of Canada's past. As the federal election campaign rolls into the final stretch, survivors and their families are looking closely at what the parties are willing to do, including holding residential school staff accountable. The CBC's Sam Sampson reports.
Out of time. Right?
Jolene Mayer's great-grandmother went to a residential school in Saskatchewan. The Métis woman from the Pas says many who were responsible for the abuse of thousands of children are dead or dying, and she wants to see charges laid.
You know, if they're still alive, the nuns, the priests, the ministers, they're like their 80s, 90s, and we're going to lose them. And they don't deserve a free walk into heaven.
That's a turtle, bear.
For Wayne Mason, justice means direct and continued federal funding for healing centers like his. He and his staff help residential school survivors reclaim their identities to help heal from what happened as children. As for people directly involved in the schools, Mason says it's their responsibility to create positive change.
If they believe that they did something wrong, then they should try and make amends. You know, and it doesn't mean throwing them in jail or anything like that, you know. I mean, that's what they do. we would be just as bad as them if we did that.
We asked all major political parties running in Manitoba what they would do within 21 days of coming into power to hold residential school staff accountable. The Green, NDP, and Liberal parties all sent along a list of actions, mainly to fund more work to uncover unmarked graves at residential school sites. The NDP said they would hire a special prosecutor to really nail down the people or groups that caused the most harm. The PPC sent along a link to their platform, specifically about Indigenous peoples. It did not include any mention of residential schools. The Conservatives said that they would really push to implement TRC calls to action 71 through 76, all of which directly address unmarked graves.
To be frank, the best way to hit them is hit them where it hurts, and that's at their bank.
For Danielle Morrison, justice means holding the Catholic Church accountable. One way to do that, she says, is by taking away its charitable status. The law associate in Winnipeg has worked with survivors. Her father was a survivor too. She wants action, not just words, from party leaders.
These are our lives. It has been my life since I was born, and I find it really frustrating that while we're still trying to pick up the pieces, political leaders are now making it into a campaign.
Whoever comes into power, she says, needs to deeply think about its future relationship with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and work on a meaningful nation-to-nation relationship. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Winnipeg.
We have some sad news to tell you about from the entertainment world.
Yeah, legendary Canadian comedian Norm Macdonald has died after a long and very private battle with cancer.
What are those commercials where the guy just tells you stuff you already know? Like this is one with William Devane, and he goes, you like gold? And you're like, yes, of course.
Macdonald got his start as a writer on The Roseanne Show in 1992 after doing the rounds of Canadian comedy clubs, and he joined the cast of Saturday Night Live the following year, and the next year he began his own memorable stint as a weekend update anchor up until 1998.
Macdonald said he was fired for making constant jokes about O.J. Simpson, a close friend of then-president of NBC. He went on to star in his own TV series and appeared on a number of other shows and movies. Norm Macdonald was just 61 years old.
So as we were talking about a couple times throughout the broadcast, there is a frost advisory in place, and that means the temperature in this blue area will probably dip between 0 and 4 degrees. So if you have crops or plants, you might want to bring them inside. Just my 2 cents. Anyway, so, man, here's what we're looking at. We're going to be looking at some rain that's going to come in Thursday and Friday. It's not going to bring huge amounts so far, but I'll know more about that tomorrow. But this system is sort of going to move out, and it's going to bring rain, as you can see, across the island there in parts of Labrador. Now, sorry, I had an extra one right there. But it is going to clear off on Thursday, so it's not going to be an amazing week. There's going to be a fair bit of rain. The temperatures are going to drop, so it's not like it was this past week. But at least there's not a hurricane in the forecast, so we're sitting pretty. So here's what we're looking ahead on Thursday, and I had to fix the graphics because I had snow in one of them by accident. It's looking like a really nice day tomorrow along the Avalon Peninsula and into Central and on the West Coast, and even up into Labrador. Now, Labrador City, you are expected to get about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain tonight, possibly, and maybe another 5 to 10 tomorrow. So you just want to keep an eye out for that. Maybe wear a raincoat. If you're in, probably not an umbrella, but who's to say? So now, as you can see, there's going to be another system coming in on Friday there. As you can see there over my shoulder there, it comes in there over Labrador. Now that's going to bring a little bit of rain, but we're not talking about a lot of rain here. What we're looking at is, right now I think it says between like 2 and 5 millimeters, but that's a lot of rain for you folks in Labrador West, Wabush and Labrador City, so I feel for you. Now, so here's what we're looking at. Oh man, how did I shag that one up? I got a 5-day forecast, but look at that. There, no, so sorry. I used a new graphic tonight, and I knew I shouldn't have used a new graphic. I was trying to show off. Anyway, so let's just take a quick look there at Central Newfoundland. I got to get off this screen. Had it. So basically, the 5-day forecast, what we're looking at there in Central Newfoundland, you can see there's a lot of rain clouds, but a bit of sun mixed in there. It's probably going to be a damp weekend. And as we move over to Western, you're looking at sort of the same things. There's going to be breaks of sun and some clouds, but it's all going to be pretty rainy. But as far as I can tell, it's not going to be large amounts. It's just going to be a little bit damp. Nothing that people in this province are not used to. But in Labrador, it's going to be a little bit nicer there. In eastern Labrador, you're going to see a little bit more sun, but there will be a fair bit of rain as well. But not large amounts except for western Labrador. As you can see there, Wednesday and Thursday, it's going to bring a lot of rain to western Labrador. Look about, like I said, 5 to 10 tonight and 5 to 10 tomorrow. Churchill Falls, you're also looking at about 5 millimeters of rain. But the big news, I think, for people to take care of and keep an eye out is that frost warning tonight for mainly central and sort of western Newfoundland. Here's our quick picture of the day. Sorry, I forgot about this. So Linda Lane sent this in. This is a bunch of geese. They're a wildlife show there in Northern Ireland. Oh, my frost advisor. Get me out of here, Gary. Get me out. There we go. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, if anyone is surprised by the frost tonight, they can't say you didn't warn them.
No, that's true.
It's a very smooth recovery.
I'm pretty slick. Like Norm Macdonald, I'm pretty slick. Anyways.
Hey, there's always tomorrow.
Sadly, not as funny, Jeremy. Not as funny.
Annie too often.
Hey, I think I have layers, Anthony. Like, I know a fair bit about musical theater, and I'm sorry if that shocked some of our audience. But
good night. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.